Okay, a really tricky question here, which I can only solve in the way that makes sense to me. So it might look quite different from other people's. And that's what you'll find, I think, is the harder the problems get, the more varied different people's responses might be. Okay, let's crack on. 20% of John's savings is £120 more than 30% of Brian's savings. John and Brian each spend half of their savings, and now John has £350 more than Brian. The question we're asked is, how much did John have in his savings at the start? Okay, so we're going to draw blocks for John and for Brian, and we're just going to have to guess as to the size. So we're going to draw two 10% blocks for John. Okay, so this represents 20% of John's savings. So each of these blocks is 10%. And then we're going to do, there's going to be 3 blocks for Brian. Okay, they're going to be smaller. I don't know how much smaller they ought to be, but this is 10% for Brian. Okay, and this difference here is 120. Okay, so let's just check this. 20% of John's savings, okay, 10%, 20%, is £120 more than 30% of Brian's. Okay, so I'm happy with that so far. Our question, I'm not going to draw in the question. Well, I suppose the question mark is here. I want to find out what 10% of John's savings are, because that will help me work out how much he had at the start. Okay, so this is sort of scenario 1. Okay. And then it says that John and Brian each spent half of their savings, and now John has £350 more than Brian, which I suppose, okay, you could draw in the 100% and shade off the 50% that's spent, but we don't need to do that. This is just another way of telling us a different scenario, a different way of representing the information where when each has 50%, the difference is 350. So we will draw that. Right, let's go. So I'm going to do it just here, John, and we've got Brian. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Because these are arbitrarily sized, the fact that this meets this doesn't mean anything. And you have to, watch out for things like that when you actually don't know the relative size of different parts. So, but we do know the difference here, and that is 350. And again, this is 10%, and again, this is 10%. Okay, so we've represented that, and here we've represented that. Now, what this then, looking at this, what this shows to me is, well, actually, what we've done in previous problems is to redistribute differences. And so that's actually what I'm tempted to do here. So I'm actually going to redraw. First I'm going to redraw this one here. So we've got John and we've got Brian. And then if I draw in, so this is John's 20%. We can redistribute this 120 over the 3 portions. Okay, so 120, so we need 120 divided by 3, which gives us 40. So what I could do is draw, this is one of Brian's 10%, and then I'm going to draw in a portion that represents 40. Okay, and then there's going to be another 10% block, and then another bit that represents 40. That's a little bit bigger, but oh well. Okay, and then another 10% block and another 40. Okay, so this here is the same as this. Okay, they're just the same, except that I have redistributed this. I've distributed this over the whole of this model. Okay, so if I did all of these in pink to show that, and then that's these here. Okay, and I suppose I could do these in dotted lines. So these are just the differences. Okay, and then I'm going to do the same for this one. Okay, so I've got the if I've got space, I've got the so these are the bars for, so this is John's 50%, and then I can, now here in this situation that's going to just be a bit faster for me to draw. So we've got John and Brian. I'm now redrawing this one. Okay, so, and then what I'm going to do is distribute this 350 over 5. So if we do 350 divided by 5, we get 70. Okay, so 1, 2, these are all Brian's units. Okay, so just to clarify, we're going over those. Sorry, these ones are always a bit long-winded, just because I don't want to, I think they're quite complicated, so I don't want to lose anybody. And then we're distributing this difference, sorry, here, over the 5. So that's where we did 350 divided by 5 is 70. So each of these is 70 each, okay? So that's just these, so these two original scenarios are redrawn here. And why I find this useful is because we can then compare. So here we have, here it's clearer. We've got one, so we've got a 10%, here's 10% of John's, and 10% of John's is equal to 10% of Brian's. So we could call these a unit of John's and a unit of Brian's. So 10% of John's we know is equal to a unit of Brian's plus 70. Okay, and then if we look at this one, we can see, we know that 2 of John's units are equal to 3 of Brian's plus the 340s. But how could we get it so that we were comparing one? Well, if 2 of John's units are equal to 3 of Brian's plus 3 portions of 40, then 1 must be equal to 1, and then we've got to split this one in half. So we're going to have half a unit of Brian's plus half of this 40. Okay, so let's redraw that over here. So what I'm going to have is I'm going to go back a bit. So I'm going to go 1 unit of John. So this is one of John's units. And then we know that it is equal to, let's do this bit first, it's equal to 1 of Brian's plus 70. Okay, plus 70. And we also know that it's equal to, and actually what I'm going to do is it's equal to 1.5 units. And because I've split this up, because I'm splitting up this bit, this middle bit here, so it's equal to 1.5 units of Brian's. All right, let's continue with the pink theme here. Okay, so that's 1.5 units of Brian's plus, okay, 40 plus half of 40, which is 60. Okay. All right, so that's what we know from comparing these two diagrams where we have redistributed and then we've split this one in half. So I now know, so this is this 10%. So what does that tell me? Well, it tells me we've now got something that to compare, or something that I can compare anyway, my little brain. What's the difference between the 70 and the 60? Well, that's 10, and the difference here is one of these half units. So each of these must have a value of 10. So this is 10, then this is 10, then this is 10. Okay, so we now know what the value of each of these half units is. This must then be 20, because that's 2 of these. Okay, so we can fill in numbers over here. So I can put that 20 in over here. Well, look, I've got 70 and then 80, 90. That gives me the value of a 10% of John's. And that's actually what we're after, aren't we? We're after finding out what at least a unit of John's is. So 10% of John's money is £90, and what are we asked is how much did John have in his savings at the start? Well, then that must be 90 times 10, which gives us 900, of course. Okay, so it might not look like anybody else's. I've no idea what anyone else has been doing in this, but that is how I got to the answer, using a bar model to show me what I needed to do. There might be a quicker way to do it. I think if you extended this model and perhaps there are other ways to do it, but this is the way that seemed most obvious to me. Okay, and I hope that helped you.